I left school at 15 in 1954 and I started work as an apprentice electrician. Sheffield at that time was very industrialised, and smoke and filth, grime and soot had accumulated on walls and ceilings, and the air wasn't clean. In mid-60s, Sheffield then was going into a clean air zone. Schools, churches, hospitals were all going from coal boilers to fitting oil burners. Boiler houses were full of asbestos. And when you went in to change boilers over to gas or oil, obviously they stripped outer covering up boilers. Pipes were all lined with asbestos. It had hang lumps of asbestos lagging. And you could see it was just flaking about. You got it on your clothes, you were dusting it off, and it was just like snow. But then when you were putting it back, the heating engineers, they were mixing it like they mix plaster in a bucket, plasters, to mixing it with a stick and then putting it on with their hands. And you went home, it were on your clothes, but you took them off and shook them, and that was it. I did that for about 3 years at different schools, churches, hospitals. You take a panel off to get more cables into fuse boards. And fuse boards also had asbestos things in them. Well, obviously you wouldn't have done it if you know what you were like. I worked on this job contracted till about 1982, and a lad who'd been my apprentice worked at council. And he says, there's a supervisor's job going at council. Do you fancy it? Anyway, I got jobs, it happens. Then they started having lectures and films about asbestos and what it could lead to and why to be careful using it. It also said on this film, small asbestos particles get in your lungs. It could stop there for 40, 50, 60 years before it would affect you. And I thought, wow, I've got that. Must have. The amount it were like. But I didn't think no more of it because I didn't feel any different. And that was it. And then I went on job one day and we had this lad working on the heating section who came as an apprentice to his father when we were doing changeovers in the 60s. And I said to him, how's your dad going on? He says, oh, he's died with asbestosis. I said, what about Ken? Worked between them both. And he says, oh, he died and all of it. I says, well, don't give me much chance like laughing. But it makes you think, doesn't it? That was it, and I retired in 2003, I was 64, and enjoyed my retirement, and never had any problems till about, I think it was 2015, 16, I started with this cough. I went to the doctors, and I went for x-ray, and he says, we've had results, you've got a shadow on your lung. He says, but it's all right, I think, you're okay. I thought, is it asbestos? But he didn't mention it, and so I just carried on, and everything was fine, up to about 2019. So I went for a scan, and then it come back that I got pleural plaques, and it was probably asbestosis. I weren't all that surprised. I thought, well, it's finally got me like. I spoke to a doctor, a professor at Northern. He says, well, send a letter to your doctors, and you'll get a copy. And I did, and he said I was first diagnosed in 2015-16. And I didn't know about it then. Nobody told me then. I knew that. I can remember having x-rays. But then my wife said, what difference does it make now? You've had it all that time. It hasn't affected us, has it? Look what we've done in that 4 or 5 years. Better know it not knowing like, aren't we? Because it hasn't affected us until it really got hold of me in 2019. We accepted it, and there's nothing you can do about it. And we said at 84, it's not going to go away. There's no cure for it. Just carry on as best we can. I mean, how long are you going to live for? When you get to 80 yards, you're going to go sometime. There's one thing about, living with asbestos since when I know I got it in the 60s, till I'm in my 80s, and knowing about other lads, I think I've got away with it, and done well to keep going. We've learned to accept it. Only thing that, bothers me is that wife will cope when I've gone, if I go first. But we've got good families and, 2 daughters and granddaughters, grandson and that, and friends. And we'll be all right. Like I say, keep going and make best of what you've got. I just hope that what I've gone through, things will be better in future for other people. Really, asbestos has got to be banned.
I was quite shy and a bit timid. Me and my sister always knew we had to keep the house looking tidy. I think everything became a routine. Well, I met Phil through his friends who went to school with us. Our first dances was at Constance Grant Ballroom, and then we moved to Glossop Road Baths. And that's when I really saw Phil, but he was always with the boys. They used to stand round the edges a lot and watch the dancers, but girls danced together then, a lot of the times. And then we all moved to the City Hall, and that was the Saturday night entertainment. And really, that's when I got to know Phil, because he asked me to dance once. And then eventually he said, do you want to go out with me for a drink one night? And it just carried on from there. We've always been on the same wavelength. And so he's gone off and done his little jobs. And I've been around the house with the two girls. And my parents came to live quite near us. So I was looking after my father, and Phil's mum and dad lived near. So we were such a close family. Phil always used to play golf on a Saturday morning, and more often than not, he went to Sheffield Wednesday football in the afternoon. And I would probably go out as the girls were growing up, we'd go to town. We also did a lot of walking. We joined a walking group, and we went every month with them. And that's the sort of life we enjoy, but life changes. Well, he'd had a bad cough for a bit of a while, and he went to the hospital. And when he came back, he said, I've got a shadow on my lung, but they said it's nothing to worry about. We still carried on with our usual routine, and then 2019-20, had to go for more x-rays. He'd got asbestosis. I think, to tell you the truth, I was prepared. Phil always said to me that when asbestos came to the fore, he said, I think I might have get that, because I've worked with a lot of people in the 60s who have died of asbestosis. They just say there's no cure, and you just think, got to carry on and do what we can. Live as life as we have, where I can tell now we are different. We are not doing the things we did before. I find I'm trying to look after him more, because I know that his breathing is affected. I'm trying to take the worry and troubles off him. But we don't talk about it. We just don't. Being under the palliative care, he brought a foam home with him, and they had put no resuscitation. He said, didn't ask me, but because of my condition, they won't resuscitate him, because it would be to no avail. And that did throw me. I just think, oh, it's probably worse than I thought it was. You have to sort of accept we're not going to live forever, so make the most of what we've got together. We've got two good daughters and a granddaughter that are so good to us and will, I know, help. They will look after everything. If anything happens to Phil, we can deal with it as best we can. It's the way we were brought up, looked after our parents, both of us. And I know we girls will carry it on and see to us.